Yep.
Is it
Oh, it's
working? We've got there.
working. I mean,
Oh,
for the last what, 10 days or so, I haven't been able to.
do you know what?
Instagram's
It's
let me
just been a
down, put
manic
it that
day.
way.
I've just literally sat down as we're logging on.
I know.
It's my first time sitting down today. Absolutely shattered. But hey, we're here.
This is what you get for being a social worker. And I should have told you that, even though you qualified before me. I'm late in telling
I'm
you. But
well.
yeah,
I'm a
how
bit
are you,
rushed off
bro?
my feet, honestly. But yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks
Yeah.
for inviting me, Curtis. Looking forward to it. Just looking forward to a bit of a chat. I've got a cup of tea with me, so don't mind me because it's my first one. Yeah, we can enjoy that. Toast on me.
Well, let me like this. What I'll do is I'm going to introduce a show. We're going to get relaxed, and I know you're
Oh,
ever ready. I appreciate you coming on. I just want to let everyone know today, guys, we are looking at someone I've met through LinkedIn, I think it was. Um, Someone who has introduced me to something very interesting. We're going to go into it. Alshad, today we're going to be talking about time management. We're going to be talking about tools. We're going to be talking about your experience. Because one thing that really kind of, because an area, I guess, an area that I wanted to develop before I became qualified was how am I going to manage my time? Because everything I see of social workers is that they're rushed off their feet. How do we handle this? Social work student 40, how you doing? How do we handle this? And I'm like, actually, time management isn't necessarily my strong suit. Being on time, yeah, I can do. But in terms of managing my diary, which can often be packed, and then you've got to keep time for the administrative tasks, and it just depends on what team you're working. So this is for the students. Anyone who's watching, we're going to learn how to manage time. We're going to learn from Alshad, who works in a very interesting team in social work. We're going to talk about that for a little while and then go into the tools and the ways in which people manage their time. And what else are we looking at? Time management. Yeah, okay. And anything else, guys, if you've got to ask about, you just put it in the chat, okay? Sir, please
hi, Curtis.
introduce
Before I
yourself.
introduce, can I just rephrase? I don't think you're going to learn much from me, but what I'll do is I will try and do my best to share some pieces of understanding and possibly some advice, maybe uh, from my own
No,
experience.
no,
But
no.
yeah, I'm Ash. Thanks for having me today. So I'm sort of the professional behind New Generation Social Work, and it's only just landed. Honestly, it's been about 8-9 weeks now since I've launched, and I think it's going well. It seems to have been received fairly well by professionals and by social workers. So I'm really grateful and I'm really humbled. So I do thank you. If there's anyone here who's made a purchase, made an order, has been following me, I honestly I'm very grateful and I take the opportunity to thank you. Um, in terms of in my background. I don't know, guys. It's been a long road. I think I've always worked with children and families. Honestly, I I've worked with children's families all my life. It's been about 18 years now that I've worked sort of in non-statutory and statutory. Uh, in terms of qualifying as a social worker, I qualified in 2017. So 2015 to 2017, I did my masters in London, and then I decided to leave London to sort of relocate. And I just at the time I just needed some, a lot had gone on. I'd worked a lot, I'd studied a lot, and I needed my own space. And when I was very fortunate to have statutory placement, and then in there I began to realize and I understood the seriousness and the veracity of social work or frontline practice. So I decided to relocate and start a new journey, but on my own. I just wanted to sort of be on my own and make sense of what it was all about. And that's what I did. So I think we're about 5-6 years later now. In terms of my current position, I'm now a senior prac. I'm working in a court team. It's So in terms of the court team for the students, it surpasses the child protection sort of point. It's children and families who have been deemed to not be able to demonstrate or evidence that they can meet their expectations of care planning, of interventions, of committing to the expectations of the local authority. So at that stage, there's sort of, you know, they make a decision to escalate. Now there's obviously different channels and there's a long trajectory behind that, but the beginning sort of position in terms of where my role is something called a public law outliner, which is a PLO, where we're sort of working with families within that stage, and then from there you can then go into the pre-proceedings, where you're still sort of thinking about going into courts, and then obviously there's a post-pre, which is called the proceedings, where you're issuing into a court. Basically you're going into courts for that 26 weeks trajectory. So my remit very much is within the court arena at the minute. That's where I'm based.
You've opened up the can of worms, because there's a lot of questions I want to ask you, and I just want you to know before we get into your no, let's do it now, because it'll disappear. So someone has said, like, yes, I bought one of our students one of your diaries because she's starting as an ASYE position this week.
Which one did you, can I just ask, which one did you buy, the craft or the patterned? So I've got the two. I've got the craft and I've got the well, I've got one by me actually. I've got the pattern design, which was a bit more. So the craft was the idea behind the craft was to be a bit more generic in design, and then the craft was a little bit more for the females, basically. If they found it, I mean, look, males are open to it as well, or how you identify your gender, but I try to give you a bit of choice, a bit of flexibility, if you know what I mean. I'm still working on it. I mean, I've still got a new launch coming actually. You know what? I'll tell you what I've called it. I've called it the classic. It's called the classic actually, and I won't reveal anymore. But that's soon to be launched.
All right. We'll come into some of the stuff. We're going to come back to this, guys. If you haven't got this, you need to get this. Okay, it's not a book. It's a planner, diary, and we're going to go into how it works in a little while. And it comes with this, which is something I use a lot.
That's your map of the day. Yes. So, are you using it, Curtis?
I was about to turn it around. No, I was about to turn it around. You can't see, but it's got notes on there that I can't show.
We can talk about it. I'd be interested to know how you're using it.
GDPR, but I do this. Of course. Here we go. Look, I've got them all here. I can flash it like that because no one can read it, but it's got notes on there to use. And this is coming from someone who's not into diaries, but I'm going to tell everyone why I use this. Please get one. We'll give you a discount code if you're very interested in the session. But let's talk about a little bit, just 5 minutes maybe, on Flowers. Bemsy, come on now, you need to get it, and you know, let me know if
loving
you want
it, getting myself on next. Yes, Flowers. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Thanks for supporting.
So this is the thing. Let's talk about your job at the moment. You and I talk a little bit off camera, and I remember you said it's crazy, but tell me in a little bit more detail, like, what's it like working in a court team in the summary, and what are the challenges, and what are the, I don't know the upsides of court team when I look at it, because you're at the very ugly end of the process. So we will have a child protection conference and escalate up to the PLO stage and so forth, and you're picking it up from there. So just give us more of a deeper overview of what court
I guess there's different dynamics to whatever team. It could be the child in need, it could be even your early help, it could be the child protection. It's just a different dynamic and how you actually leverage that. So what's interesting about when you get to the PLO stage is like a lot of work has already been done, a lot of intervention work, a lot of planning, a lot of processes have been gone through, have been sort of, you know, progressed. Children and families know the local authority, know the children and families. Some of these families have been known for 2 to 3 years. Some of the families have been known generationally, you know. So a lot of it is already embedded. The challenge is when lots of work, lots of intervention, lots of decisions have been made. You know, how do you now recycle that? that thinking? How do you then replan it? How do you then strategically think, well, if this hasn't worked over a period of 2 years, you know, how do we then now try to make it work? Because the assumption is now at the PLO stage, or the pre-proceedings, is we want to give you another chance. The underlying assumption is we, as a local authority, the view at the minute currently, we don't want to escalate. That's the last point of call. That's the last resort, you know. So what we're trying to do is not escalate. What we're trying to do is de-escalate, and it's about having that dialogue. I guess the difference at this stage is, you know, the guys above are really heavily involved. It's not just the managers at this stage, it's your service managers, it's the guys above the service managers. It's the legal teams that are involved, advocates that are involved. You have you know, it's really you will feel the multi-agency work, the dynamics of multi-agency working within that. Everyone has a view, everyone has a perspective, you know. It's about formalizing and consolidating what those views are, what those experiences are, and really trying to work out how we're going to try and work things out, and really honestly give the families that best opportunity that they can to you know, just to achieve and to thrive and to start making some change, or a level of change, or to demonstrate a level of commitment, so that we can work with that, you know. So that's the challenge. That's the challenge within it.
So this is it. I wanted to just, you know, we have to, because we do a lot of our audience is students, so I'm going to take it back a little bit, and I have to remember how I speak, and I don't want to lose anyone. So the PLO, it's a public outline. So let me just say, before we get to that stage, if you work in children and families, what happens is we can say, all right, we'll send the family to early help. It's a low threshold. Then we could say, actually, they might need a bit more support. Let's offer, which is voluntary, child in need, which means that they get a social worker, and we work to a plan. Sometimes the threshold is higher, and they might have greater needs, or where we've got real deep concerns. If the parent can actually manage without some level of support or oversight, then we'd say child protection. Now, these, like you said, some families are in the system for years, and it could be, you know, 20 years, 4, 5, 6 kids, and it's generations and step families, and it's probably maybe one father who's got a couple of families, and he might be a risk to the family, or a mum who just keeps going in cycles where she's putting the children at risk. And so we'd say, right, look, mum, we don't think you can manage these kids, so we're going to work to a real plan here. But it means that we're going to go to court, and sometimes you have to, you know, raise the bar and say, look, we need to look out for these children, because the parent isn't showing that she's working to the plan, or the plan isn't going to work. So then we'd have to go to court and prepare for court, and that we hand it then over to you. So we go to our legal teams, and we're looking at whether we have met thresholds. And so people think social workers come take our kids, and it's not quite like that. And Alshad is just going to shed a little light on, is that possible? But before we get there, the legal teams will advise, and we'll have a general general meeting, and that will be with in-house lawyers who would advise. Well, and they're not our friends by any means. No one's looking to go to court and spend lots of money when we don't have the things in place. They will challenge us and say, have you done this and that? This is the law regarding the allegations and the concerns. And then they will say, right, yes, fair enough, we can go to court on this, because it looks like nothing's working. It's been 3 years, 5 years, it might even be 6 months. The risk is too high. Let's go to court. And Alshad's at court, or Ash is at court, and then PLO stands
public
for
law outline.
Public law outline, yeah. And then really kind of just explain more.
So
about
it's really the
that
court
means.
arena, basically. It's just, it highlights the threshold for that court trajectory. There's sort of different stages to it. It's more to do with, it's more alongside it consolidates the pre-proceedings and the proceedings, which is issuing. So before issuing it into an actual court case, which is the 26-week period within, that's what the courts now give, you have the pre-proceedings, which is we're trying to prevent to go into that. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to work with families. We're trying to revamp a plan. So it's a layer of planning and intervention work, essentially of a failed plan, if that makes sense. And what we're trying to do is trying to scaffold. We're trying to reanalyze and reevaluate what's not working so well. What areas of that could have been improved, maybe? Where are the strengths? Where can we harness a little bit, hone in a little bit more with the family? What teams and agencies potentially could be here to support. And then there's just the other strand to it. The other feature is doing more evidence-based work. So, you know, we're looking at working with psychologists. We're looking at doing maybe specialist assessments at this stage as well. If families have sort of learning needs, it's about doing a type of specialist assessment that can support them within that process. So there's terms like PAMS assessments, and that there's a new one now. I forgot what it's called, but it's like the PAMS assessment, and these you know these tools are developing in a modern day, which is really good. There's your substance misuse testing. There's FDAC who are the substance misuse team who work in. They have their own court process as well. So there's loads of support. There's loads of evidence-based work, loads of intervention work that goes in within that proceedings. There's different timescales to it. It then goes through rigor meetings. So there's I don't think there's, if my memory reminds me wrong, there isn't an actual time scale. There are time scales within the meetings within the time scale period, but if that then along a certain period of time when that demonstrates that it's not working, we will then re-adjourn for a meeting to then go into, they call it a legal gateway, which is the gateway. That's where we're gonna issue now. So there's lots and lots and lots of work. So what I'd like to say is, and to really clarify, because it's really unfortunate that the first stereotype that as social workers the first barrier that we face is, well, I'm here to remove the child, but that's not the case. It goes through a very long, very complicated, very informed process before anything like that, any dialogue like that is taking place, unless there's a threshold of imminent risk, which surpasses your significant harm. And honestly, imminent risk, and where you're having to remove on an emergent protection order, or you know, you're getting instructions to remove at birth and things like that, you know, it's only a minute percentage of working with children and families. It's not the overall, it's not the grand scheme of things. The majority, I would say between 90% of families, local authorities are honestly doing their best within their stride, within their capacity to do what's best really for families within the appropriate stage of the work.
Excellent. Yeah, you're articulating it really well. I mean, it is the side of social work that I'm not the most familiar with, and you're working on another end of my work. So basically, yeah. So just so you all know, and if you have any questions for Ash, just let me know. But just so you'll know that social work is like one big pie, but can we say that, one big pie? But we are all operating on different.
You know, honestly,
scale.
Sorry to cut you short, but because I'm thinking you're based on the assessment team. That's equally as important, because that's the initial. You know, they call it information gathering process. I don't really like that word. It sounds too technical, but for me that's the stage where you start building relationships with families. That's the first point of a call to really encourage and really promote relational building, to really represent the values and the principles of not just the local authority, but what social work actually is. So I've worked a few years in an assessment team. You know, it's really fast paced and things like that, but it's just as important as any other arena within the child protection, because for me, what dictates, even at the PLO stages or the pre-proceedings, whatever you want to call it, those single assessments, those children and family assessments, like even today I was reading a children and families assessment that was undertaken, and that's informing my PLO, because I had an initial PLO meeting. Yeah. And so coming off the back of that was the work of the social worker. He was saying, you know, well, actually, I'm concerned about that. I'm worried about this. This is the grey area, and this level of uncertainty happened there. My initial observations of mum was this. My new observation of dad was that. So that then later down the line, okay, is informing, is shaping, is forming the view and the perspective of the social worker tomorrow. You know, what really matters then is that relationship that was being built at the time. That's what really matters, because that's the work, that's the meaningful work where parents' lived and children's lived experiences really shine in. We need to have grip of experience in what life looks like for families. What life is difficult and it's complex. We need to understand why it's difficult, what made it difficult, why it's complex. That's the lens we need to be looking at when we're looking at work and looking at, you know, the lives of people. Sorry, I just wanted to say that because I know you're an assessment team.
Oh. No, I'm glad you said it. I mean, you're really tying up, you know, you're really helping us understand the shape of children and families and what it looks like. And it's such a complex graph, but I guess it's a complex image. We get a silhouette version, but when you break it down, you add more
it
colours and
matters
structure
equally
to
at
what
every
it is.
stage. That's what I was trying to say. It's just as important as an assessment team done in a child and need plan or a CP plan, and done at later stages. It's every part of it is so important, and practitioners need to really remind themselves of that. Not that we don't know that, we are aware of that, but it's just sometimes we forget that this tree is one thing.
You know, it's really good talking to you about it, because, and I hope you guys will get this, the listeners, viewers are getting that. I'm now more informed about my job when I talk to Ash, because he's basically telling me what I need. I spoke to another officer, social worker who works for Kafkas, and in just conversations with her, it's a few lives back, conversations with her helped me understand more about what needs to go into an assessment. The only downside is that because sometimes the pressures are so high to churn out the assessments, if we get, like what happened to me a few months ago, was double the amount of assessments, of service users coming in, families coming in 1 week than normal. And so there's a lot of pressure. So that pressure can mean you either rush or you get it done late. And then Ash, at his end of the job now, is thinking, what does this mean? But obviously, before it gets there, service managers and other managers, area directors will be looking at it and saying, now we need more. But you're informing me about what I need to do for my
you know, there's a saying where they say your GCSEs
really
take you a long way. And honestly, I understood the depth of my GCSEs when I was probably in my 30s. I thought, oh God, you know what? I wish I'd done better. You know what I mean? Same thing when you get to those stages. The single assessment, it goes a long way. The information provided then really does come to life, because those are the pieces. That information is key. Those decisions, that analysis, those concerns. You know, if you're operating on, you know, what's the risk, the grey areas, the concerns, the strengths. Those are the points that really bring the latter stages to life, because those concerns, when you're at my stage, it then demonstrates that, you know, subsequently these were the initial concerns, but they haven't changed. So it's all information, you know, and then we need to be asking, well, why hasn't it changed over this, you know, 6 to 9 months within a child protection plan? What's gone wrong? Why are we here and having these conversations again? So a children and family assessment comes to life. It really does later on.
Interesting. I guess I'm going to ask you a question, guys. Ash is not ready for any. Well, he's not aware of the questions I'm going to ask. So this is really
don't
good.
go hard on me.
My question is, what do you want to see? What are maybe some of the top 2 or 3 things you really want to see from social work
assessments?
Yeah.
Well,
what do you think?
For me, language has to be really simple. We can't have jargon, technical language, and fancy riffraff. At the end of the day, look, I'm a bit of an academic head, all right? And so there's a framework. It's called discourse, and a discourse is something that has power embedded within it. So an assessment essentially is a discourse. It's a framework that captures the phenomena, the lived experiences, and the reality that are taking place within human functioning, human life. Within the context of social work, that's the activity that's going on within the private sphere, the home, i.e. the home. And so what is framed as a discourse is that the assessment framework, right, of the children and family assessment, it's designed to allow you to capture a very particular perspective of family life, of human activity. So we need to understand that. Why I'm saying that is because there are clearly, when there's power involved, it means there's dynamics of power at play. And everything about an assessment is equally as important, right from how you conduct yourself, right from the language that you're using, right from whatever tools that you're using, right from the analysis that you're making, right from the decisions that you're making towards the end, right from whether you're stepping down or stepping up. Do you see where the power is? All of those functions of a single assessment has a dynamic of power at play. Does that make sense? Kind of a thing. So yeah,
I'd rather you break it down.
So why I've started from that is because language that we use needs to be really simple, really clear. and we need to be really clear about what the risk is. This is highlighting the risk. You know, there's different models that you know that help us highlight the signs of safety, because I think it makes it really simple to highlight what your risk actually is, what the strengths of the family actually are, what your concerns and what your worries are, what the grey or the complicated factors are. So those need to be really clear, and not and it can't be, it shouldn't be sort of repeated. It needs to be, these are the risks, these are the strengths, and this is the safety. So
that's interesting you say that, because we could be under the impression that we've got to impress the court with our vocabulary, when it's actually,
yeah, and I've read a lot of
problem.
assessments where it comes across really fancy, but the substance behind it, what they're trying to say, actually you can contest it. You know, so for me, that's my number one is language. Use language. Number two, always, it's all about the child. Everything, and it doesn't matter what power dynamics, whatever, what language you use, and it doesn't matter what team you're in. It really does need to highlight the lived experience of a child, in what a way.
How are we highlighting
So right from
the lived
so I
experience
remember when I was
of the child?
working on an assessment team, and it always begins with history. Is sort of one of the first key questions you're going to be asking is, is a family known to children's services? Yes. What's the history? That particular section there, within on its own, the history alone gives you an indication of what that child's life looks like from a historical perspective. Even there, you can start identifying patterns of childhood, patterns of the child's relationship with mum, child's relationship with dad, child's relationship with siblings, how the child has been socialized within a home, what the systems of the home is, what the culture within the home is, religion, views, beliefs, how all that comes into play, and then socializes a child into his complex world. It's a web. A child is not isolated within itself. A human isn't isolated. So a single assessment really identifies, it really highlights the fact that we as humans, right from the get-go, right from children, right from childhood, whereas we're a part of a complex web, and it really doesn't matter. Every part of that web socializes us in a way. It shapes, informs, and it provides us results, either healthy experiences or adverse experiences, and that then identifies who we are, who our identity is, as children. What role that has to play as when we're beginning to make sense of the world, how we interpret the world, how that child themselves interpret their own lives, their own childhood, their own attachment. It's really about it's not about what your perception of attachment is. Attachment is the need to belong. We understand that attachment is a need to belong. That's the theory behind it. But what does that mean for the child? The child is not going to tell you, "Oh, Curtis, I need to belong." What dictates that is that child's lived experience. What dictates that is that child's relationship with mum and dad. What dictates that is how that child was brought up. What dictates that was that child's the opportunities that child is given, how he's been influenced at school, who his friends are. Is he in a structure? Is he in a routine? Is he in boundaries? What he's doing over the weekends? What his interests are? What his vision is? What does he want to be when he's older? Do you know? So you can start to identify all of that just from the child's history, from the family's history, yet alone an entire children and families assessment. And then when you start to go down, what you're starting to then identify is, what does this mean now? We're looking at it now. What's been going on now? These are the concerns. We've got a referring from school. School has raised, they're worried about X, Y, and Z. But that's the concerns now. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm going with it. Right. So what is that child's lived experiences currently, and what's led to where there was a need for me as a social worker to be involved. So for me, that's for me it's just really interesting, the different sections of the children, because it's really powerful stuff once you understand what's actually entrenched within it, because you're really part of that story. You're half of that as a social worker. It's not just fancy stuff. You have a part to play. That's why I mentioned about dynamics of power, because you then now have the power to alter that, because you are making that decision at the end of the day. it's you who says, well, actually, this is negative, this is positive, this wasn't so good, this was good.
Well, that is a reminder to me about what I'm doing here. It's very easy to tick the boxes and write an assessment, but actually you contextualized it, and this is what the court is looking for. This is what the assessment is looking for, and I know this, and it's a reminder to everybody. And for those of you students who are listening, when you come in, exactly what Ash has said is exactly what it is. When you hit the ground, what is a child saying? This is one of the reasons why I advocate so heavily for, when I was in the youth offending service, we advocate, a lot of our work is advocacy, to be fair. And it's like, look, you'll have other professionals who will see what they perceive to be a risk or a concern. But then when we've done the work with the child on the ground, we can say, actually, no, that's not the concern, or don't talk about the child like that. Watch your language, or what is it that other professionals are seeing about this child that is the risk or the concern? And why do they act the way they act? When we see a child being difficult in school, we challenge that as youth justice practitioners and as social workers. And I also do it for the parents. I'm like, no, actually, although we're in a child protection conference because of the concerns with his family, I won't allow anyone to put a narrative on here that isn't fair and true. I've always advocated for every conference I've been to. Yes, we've got concerns yet again, but I won't allow that narrative to be a part, because I've done the work, and I can see actually the children love their parents. Let's try and avoid care. Let's try and avoid having the children taken away. Let's actually work with the family on this particular thing. Yes, we can go in a few circles, but we don't want to cause any more damage to the child. We're representing the needs of the child and the family so that we can work with them effectively. And this is that's something that just came to mind. I want to ask you about yourself a little bit, because I know what Instagram's doing lately is cutting us off after an hour, and I know we've got about 20 minutes until this comes in. I'll start
Has it been 40 minutes?
To catch up. It does.
Wow.
It's been 40
minutes. Am I talking to you?
Well, actually, yes, 40 minutes. It looks.
Am I talking too much, Curtis? So
roughly.
You got me started.
No.
Please do.
I'll cut you. I'll cut you if you are. Or I'll go like this. You know. Let's have a look. I'm reading off of my, Tell me, can you just talk a little bit about how you manage home life and social work? Because a part of the topic today is time management. All right.
Cool.
So I'm a dad with 3 children. One of them's in uni, so I'm a bit lucky there. But it is an interesting journey, studying and working and being a parent, working and being a parent, being a social worker. It sometimes does mean that I miss out, and it's hard to do that. Do you have any children? What's your situation, if you don't mind?
That's probably the most challenging part for this, because you know why? For me, Curtis, this is where it gets personal. And when it gets personal, this is where real emotions are at play. Do you know what I mean? So I have a family, I have a wife, I have 3 children. We've just had baby last year, actually. So I've only got, my daughter's only at the minute 14 months old, bless her. She's a baby. So it's wow. And so it's difficult because she was born last year, January the 10th, and I think within 2 weeks of her being born, I then went into a local authority where I worked in a child protection and court team. It wasn't just a court team at that point; it was a CP plus court team where you was holding the child protection stuff. And I worked throughout the year, and it was very difficult, incredibly difficult to manage just to endure some of it, the long hours, being out in the community, and then having to come home and then support your family, be there for your children, school runs, dinners, homework, activities. It's virtually,
is it possible? I mean,
it's virtually impossible.
You're saying
that there's a level of sacrifice that it's so deep that it can't be justified to any. I don't think you can justify that to anyone, to any professional, to any career, to any manager, to any friend, you owe that to yourself. This is where you need to really get real with yourself and have that conversation with yourself. Can I do this? Is this justifiable to do it at this time? Is this a time right? Do I betray myself? And it gets that real. And you need to be ready to ask yourself that question. And you need to be ready to make those sacrifices, because of what you're sacrificing. Honestly, Curtis, when you lose it, you lose it. It doesn't come back. Time doesn't come back for you. You know what I mean? Your manager's not going to come back for you tomorrow and say, yo, Curtis, let me tell you something, bro. That time when you missed out on your daughter, blah, 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 and you missed out on that important thing that she felt was really important, but you couldn't go there because you was out on a section 47. And mind you, I've had phone calls when I'm out on a section 47, 7 o'clock at night. When my wife is calling me, Ash, come home because an emergency has taken place, and I'm saying I can't. I'm with the police, and I come home and she's not happy. Later on, you will then realize that can't be replaced. You know what I mean? And no one, not for money, not for love.
What? Just before you go any further with that, I want to answer a question. Want you to answer a question. See if you can answer this from Shanky's Journey, saying, is there a particular area of social work a newly qualified should go into?
I see. I'm a firm believer that I think the assessment team is a bit too fast paced. I think it's just pure crisis intervention. I think newly qualified really need to come to terms with Section 17. That's where your bread and butter lies. That's the fundamentals of practice. So my advice to any newly qualified or even in ACY, even at your ACYE stage, post-qualifying, try and find yourself at the back end of a child protection team where you can actually then hold, a bit more, hold the majority of the cases that are Section 17s, and then start to engage with a level of child protection. It's not about status. Child protection, PLO, statutory practice, this is all status. At the end of the day, it's recognized, we recognize it as a label. It doesn't matter. It's about the needs of a child. It's about the development of a child. It's about risk. It's about analysis. It's about harm. It's about risk thinking. It's about the paradigms of understanding why we're here in the first place, how children go here in the first place. And that within itself, to really grasp that, takes years. It takes years. It's about, so my advice to any newly qualified is try and find yourself in a team where you can even have a conversation with a manager and say, look, give me, if my caseload is 10, give me 7 child in need cases. Let me learn to identify what a plan is. Let me learn to go into a child in need meeting and to coordinate that plan. Let me learn to actually then engage in multi-agency, begin those basic inquiries, those phone calls. That phone call, don't think it's just a phone call. It's not just a phone call. It tells you a million and one things. Begin to structure a plan, identify what the health needs are, what the children's needs are at that stage. And when you can really come to terms with that, then we can start thinking about stepping up. Someone's mentioned thoughts on fostering. Fostering is really, really good at the same time. So fostering really does take you away from the child protection because it's right at the back end of the child protection trajectory, which is now you're looking at children who are identified as looked after. So you're looking at LAC. And so that's a different sort of ball game altogether. You're looking at children who are in placements, you're holding LAC meetings. It's really good. It's really good. It's really good experience. You will be engaging with social workers from the child protection team. You'll be identified as the expert within the fostering agency. You'll be undertaking 4MS, which is 6 months to take really rigor, deep in-depth pieces of work with foster carers. But it does really take a shift away from that child protection trajectory. So it depends on where you want to go. It depends on whether you want to go down the child protection route or whether you want to go into the LAC route. But for me, even if you want to get into a child, sorry, Curtis, but even to be good at fostering, my personal view, again, it's just my view, I think you really need to come to terms with some child protection experience, i.e. understanding what Section 17 is, understanding what Section 47s are, and the difference between those two discourses there, to be able to then really engage with fostering.
Now, this is it. I mean, that was a really important perspective. And it's going to vary from social worker to social worker, but I appreciate that perspective. And I think that off of the back of when you said, look, there is a level of sacrifice and debt in some capacity when it comes to being a family person. Some of us are single mothers, single fathers, and depending on the age of the child, you do have to consider the impact on your family. So if you do work in child protection and you've got young children, you've got to
It's
think
a choice.
carefully
It's
about
the
that
choice that
step.
you're making.
Like,
Look,
you working in
sorry,
your marriage or
it's not going to change.
you know.
For obviously, we are hopeful that it changes. Okay, the current circumstances we find ourselves in right now in social work, as a whole, abroad, across the board in social work, it's essentially we're looking at a service that's in crisis, and I can tell you that. Okay, every day we're seeing these things in the newspapers, in the articles, going to local authorities. It's hard work. Now you need to really make a choice. Am I ready? Am I prepared? Am I within the right circumstances? Even in my well-being, am I well enough to put myself through something like this? If yes, then go for it. You know. If no, then just be bold. Then there's nothing wrong in that. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Just, I think I'm getting to that stage. Even today, I promise you, I started last week, and I went in this week completely inundated, completely. And I just thought, you know what? Am I really at this stage now to be doing this? Honestly, I've only sat down this evening, and I thought, it's difficult. It really is. And this is talking about, 5-6 years later, I'm doing it. So it doesn't get easier. It doesn't matter if you're 10 years down the line, you're 15 years down the line, you're 20 years into it. It remains as difficult as ever. What makes that impact is the choices that you begin to make yourself as a professional. You need to be a professional, not just for other people. You need to be professional when it comes to yourself, when it comes to your family. The same way you're making decisions for other people's families, you need to make those integral decisions for yourself, for your child, for your wife, for your home, and for your own responsibilities. That's how you delegate. It's black and white for me.
That's PCF1,
I don't know, I've
PCF9,
forgotten.
right?
Is it PCF? Yeah.
Professionalism.
So make choices, make informed choices, professional informed choices. And look, social work isn't going anywhere. You can go into it. You can have a break. You can have a rest. There's nothing. You don't need to be this fully fledged pro season social worker because you have something to prove to people. You don't have nothing to prove to anyone. What you have to prove to is your self-worth to yourself and to your family. So that's what you have to be proving yourself to. There's no point being 30 years in a career, but at the end of it, you've got no health, you've got no well-being, and you can't be there for your family. You can't be there to enjoy life. You can't go there to have, to enjoy some sport or some activity or to do the other things that you're passionate about. Your 30 years in practice doesn't help them at that stage. You need to be really considerate and really careful in your planning how you go about a career like this. And this is not kids play. This is serious stuff. This is serious business that we're in. And this is why I love the online platforms. There's yourself, there's Nana, there's Bianca McKay, there's Social Work Sorted, even Susie for the students. What she's doing, I admire it. I love what Susie's doing. These platforms, guys, whoever's listening, utilize those platforms. Go speak to these guys, connect to them. DM privately, just DM them. Say, listen, come out of your space, come out of the local authority, professional organizational context, and go into these more informal spaces. This is uncharted territory. This is my view is there's a future in this, and connect with these guys and speak to them, ask them for advice, sit with them. These guys are lovely. These guys are experts. Bianca's at IRL, Nana's a manager. Social Work Sorted, she's been here 10 years. She's a consultant. I think she's 14 years plus in the game. These are serious people. We'll have Curtis, the main man over here, really experienced in what he's doing. So utilize these resources. These are key resources. Just because it's not promoted, it doesn't mean it's not key. These are key, and I'm glad I'm part of this.
Hey, it's a pleasure. I want to know, no matter where I've been or what I've done, whenever I appear online, I come as someone to learn. I want to... There's enough food out here. We can all share, we can all eat, and we can all learn. I will never stop. And I would like to, at all times, place myself on the same level as a student at all times. And that's how we need to be as social workers, no matter how far we get into it. I would also take my hats off to my manager. I don't know, she's not listening now, I'd have seen, but she's someone that equalizes the power very well. Doesn't make, you don't know that there's a hierarchy. Even with my service manager, and I did a TikTok on it as well, she avoids the hierarchy game. She puts a lot of effort into not trying to be that. Not area director, not service manager. Trying to always equalize that. And as I come here today, guys, please understand that I come here as a student. I want to do is I want to go into something, and I don't want to do it in this live. I'm going to restart the live. And guys, I want you to just rejoin me, because there's something I want to go into that has helped me a lot, and it's helped a number of my friends a lot as well. Okay. And we want to look at time management and tools. Something really interesting I want to go into. It's on paper here, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to restart this so that we don't get that 2-minute warning timer that throws us off. Ash, you coming back here?
I'm still alive. Just about.
All right. Listen. Yeah. Okay. So this is it, guys. I'm going to restart this live. I'll see you in about 30 seconds. See you in a minute. Oh, 1 sec. Oh. It's hot, man. Okay, we are back. Let's get back into it. We can't waste any time. We can't waste any time. Let's get you back in. And I appreciate you guys are just on it. You're here to learn, it's obvious. Those of you who are here to learn, because you came back straight away, which is an indicator of what you're about. He's here, let's invite him in. So we're learning a lot. I mean, that was really good insight into the court team, the processes. Make your decision wisely. Got the wrong camera on, bro.
So
no, it's all right. And make the decision wisely about the team you go in. Everyone's got different circumstances and different capacities. I've got 3 children. My youngest is 9. My middle one's 15. My oldest is in uni. I've got more bandwidth than someone who, because I remember attending a session with a social worker and a mentor in London South Bank where I studied. And one of the concerns from a parent was, you know what? I've got a young child. And I'm like, choose your team wisely. In my head, choose your team wisely. Because this is also about you as much as it is about your experience. Like you said, Ash, there's no trying to prove anything to anyone. Far he has, yeah? I don't know how to say your name. Go and watch the previous live. It'll be up there in a minute. Okay, so this is it. I want to get into this. Now, listen. So I was approached by Ash, and I really do appreciate meeting you as well. And let me say, you offered me something. You said, can I, have a look at my planner? I'm like, I'm not into planners. I'm not into planners. I'm not into diaries. I've never held one. I think what you gave me, push this back a bit so we can get me a lot. God, you need to be equipped in a very particular way where you need to know how to manage diary, manage time. Okay, and if you don't do that, it's a struggle. That's just the plain fact, because any team that you go into, you've got to work out how you're going to move the most efficient in that role. So I appreciate you, sir, for introducing me to your banner. It will show up back to front, unfortunately. Instagram's not that clever. But this here, yeah, it's not slim, it's a lot. Now, it's not a book, it's a planner. And I've been using this for about 3 odd weeks now, maybe since I've had it, 3-4 weeks. And I'm very surprised by this. I am very surprised by this. I want to go into it. And the guest on the show tonight is the one who has produced this. So I've asked him to come on because we're going to talk about how he's done it, why he's done it, and I'm going to talk about some of the key features for me. Anybody else who has this now, if you could just shout it out and just say what you love about this as well. But this has been very helpful to me, and I'm like,
it would be interesting to know how people's used it, their experiences around it. Actually,
oh, come on. I mean, look. Okay, so this is a planner, but it's not just a planner. Oh, come on, man. Look, I want to scream and shout, but it'd be unprofessional, right? Not only that.
It's not just a planner.
Say again?
No, it's not just a planner. It's not your audio planner. You know, I hope it's not anyway.
No.
I put a lot of thought into it.
Look, I have to get rid of my notes so that I can show you all what's going on. So this is it. So you also get a pad as well. What would you call this document?
That's your map of the day, and I'll explain that. There's a bit of science, there's a bit of research behind it, so we can go into it.
Come on, look, okay. And on the back of that as well, you've got this section, which is so let's break it down. So on here, we've got a little kind of a, what would you call this section?
That's your daily schedule, and again, there's a reason for that.
Right. So let's go through it real quick, and then we'll go through it in more detail. We've got this daily schedule. I need this.
Yeah.
Okay. It may not be 100% accurate when I write my notes, but I've got it there and it's on paper, but it helps me. And then we've got this section here as well. What would you call this?
That's your timescales matrix. So that's your matrix that allows you to begin to organize, to pre-plan, to think about your role within the timescales that you're in.
And look, I've only got it slimmed down, but it's a thicker pad, okay? But I can't walk with the pad.
Oh,
I don't want to damage it.
I've got one. I've got one with me. Quite fit.
This is it. And then on the back, we've got a task list.
That's your traditional. So I call that the traditional to do. And again, I'll explain why it's called a traditional to do and why I put it there.
Right.
And then you have your brain scribble, which is my version of a brain dump, essentially. But again, there's a reason why I've put that there. There's a reason between why I've laid it out in that particular way.
So let's go into it now. Let's look at this. These are my notes for today, so that's good. Break this down. What was this about for you?
Yeah, sure. So before, well, let me tell you the first underlying issue. Well, I'm probably the most disorganized person there is. And so that's what's prompting me to do it. I've gone through years of social work, just been completely disorganized. Being disorganized really for me generates distress and that overwhelming feeling. Just being completely disorganized and going in a day, just not having a plan, not having a strategy. I mean, obviously I have a basic plan, everyone has their own unique way. And everyone has approaches in their own different way. But I really wanted to find a way that formalized a way or a strategy on a bit more of a general basis, so that it can sort of help everyone who is practicing in a bit more of a mundane way, but then they can really use it to personalize how they're practicing. So I've tried to amalgamate the both. So your unique way, but within a formalized approach. That's why I've done it this way. Okay, so I don't have the research with me, so I'm not going to remember a lot of it on top of my head. So why I've started with a schedule. This section of the map of the day is a schedule. It's your Monday to Friday. Now, what the research actually says is, I'm gonna just for today, I'm gonna rip this. So what the research is saying is that I feel like I'm in a lecture now. I'm gonna have my my board and my stick. Is your traditional to do, the mundane, I need to do this. What this actually does, it enhances procrastination. In other words, it's not very helpful. And it's not very helpful on a couple of ways. One, it's not helpful psychologically, because as humans, we process information. It's really important to understand that. And two, it doesn't actually help you when you have, a to-do list that's from the top there to the top here, and it's got about 100 things written. On a practical level, because the instant feeling there when I look at 9 o'clock in the morning and I've got 50 things here is, blimey, how am I going to achieve this today? How, where do I even begin? Where do I start? What's important? What needs priority here? So that's literally what, I'm not saying this is what the research is saying. Okay, so what the research actually, mind you, productivity research has been around for years. This is an old school topic. This is not something that's new. I was quite surprised to see just how long this stuff has been around for. Okay, and I'm even more surprised to see why none of this is in social work, because this is a core skill fundamentally.
Don't tell me that's me. Is that me? Don't tell me it's me. Don't tell me it's me. Let's see. I'm going to remove him off. Tell me. I'm going to bring him back in. I don't know what happened to the internet. Let me know if you can hear me still, okay? If it's me or if it's frozen. Who's frozen? Is it me? Oh, so I was wondering if it was me or you. I'm not sure, but hey, it
I
happened.
don't know what happened. It literally just cut out. I
So,
apologize.
okay.
Sorry. So where was I? So that's what the research says. So let's negate. Let's go for a process of elimination here. What the research is saying is your traditional to-do list is not very helpful. It doesn't help. It's not helpful on a practical level. It's not helpful on a mentally and a psychological level. And what it does, it produces two things: feelings of being overwhelmed, confusion, and procrastination. Every single one of those things is the last thing you need whilst you're in child protection, mate. You need to be productive. So what I was saying is, I find it fascinating that productivity as a core skill is something that's what we're not being taught right from the get-go. So right from just so, I advise any student, if you want me to say to students, because is it students in ACY? Is that's the audience today?
Yeah, the bulk of it. Yeah, the bulk.
Bulk. So my message to you guys is really come to grips with what the notion of productivity means. In social work, and I will talk about productivity within itself in a minute. Let's talk about this stuff. So what the research then says is it's much more helpful, for the psychological mind, right, for the practitioner, for the professional, for the busy everyday professional, to actually map and to schedule what your daily task, your daily schedule looks like. Okay, so you begin with a schedule, and what it does is it really breaks down exactly what it is that you have to do today. Okay, so it's engaging I have to do with my Monday on a 9 to 5. Now, this is on paper. It's not on the calendar. Sometimes it's not processed that it's on the calendar. That connection and that relationship between you and a calendar is still abstract, okay, because it's not happening yet. But the relationship between you and paper, when you begin to write and engage, it becomes very much real. You're beginning to embed in your vision that, well, actually, this needs to be done. You're bringing it to life. In other words, you're preparing yourself, you're setting yourself up for the day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So that's what this sets out to do. You're setting yourself up for that day. Now, my advice is try and develop a practice. Try to do it in the evenings or on a weekend. I encourage you to replace working from home with 10 minutes of just planning, just to empty your mind, empty your psyche, get yourself in a habit of trying to not go to bed with all of that in your mind. It's not healthy. What we need to be doing is actually trying to develop healthier practices. This is a really good tool to start developing and encouraging healthy practice, and to sort of demystifying, debunking the bad habits that we have. It's all about building new habits, okay? This is why we have this, to build habits on one hand. So schedule for your day. Now, really bespoke to, I don't know if there's any other profession, honestly, that it's so entrenched in timescales. Okay, timescales is a massive, huge chunk of what we do. It generates the stress, it generates the rigor, it generates the performance targets, it generates all the attention from heads of services, it generates the expectations. Timescales is something that we really need to come to terms with. Okay, it's what's been monitored. It's what at times it even measures your competency at practice, albeit I disagree with that.
That is some of the foundational aspects of looking at your numbers.
I've been in practice. I've been in local phrase where, a social worker is framed as a good practitioner because he's able to perform, not practice. There's a difference between performance, and I'm going to go into all this, not today, I don't have the time, but there's a difference between performance and there's a difference between practice, and that comes under the umbrella of productivity. But anyway, so this is all about your timescale matrix. Now, this, what you begin to identify and make sense. Again, it's all about capacity. The human mind, the human capacity is identifying what's urgent here, what's not urgent, okay, what's important, and what just doesn't need to be done for next week. But again, within your time,
keep it on the screen. Yeah.
Sorry, but within your time scales. So what we're identifying here is this is urgent. This section 47 is due in today.
Yeah.
And the question is, if it's not done today, why isn't it being done today? All right, because we need to be planning. But that's the manager's question, right? So this is what's important, but not urgent. But in actual fact, this is also, you'll begin to understand once you lay it out here, it's important, but it doesn't need to be done today. This can actually be done maybe next week or in 2 days' time later. So I don't need to be stressing today about that. I don't have energy to be stressing about what's not important or what needs to be done in 2 days' time. 2 days' time doesn't exist. What exists is today. So that's why we've got what's urgent and what's key. This is about the today, always about the today. We're not thinking about, we're planning for tomorrow, but we're not actualizing, we're not internalizing tomorrow. We're cutting that stress, all right? We can only do what we can. And again, what's not important? The not important is always to make you understand that, you know, this, again, is to map out that, one, is to alleviate anxiety, yeah, to make sense that this just doesn't need to be done today. So why overwhelm myself today? We don't want to be overwhelmed, yeah? And then noting things for next week. This is your space to start beginning to plan for next week, which is key in time scales, because time scales, the behavior and the tendency of time scales, it will creep in. It will creep in next week, it will creep in the week after, it will creep in next month. All right. If you're finishing Friday 5 o'clock, Monday 9 o'clock, you have an ICPC. So Saturday you're writing the report because it creeps up on it. Yeah. Okay. So what you need to be doing is start thinking about next week. So it doesn't produce that type of behavior. When it produces that type of behavior, you're in crisis. Okay. Now, no one's going to tell you, Ash, Curtis, don't do the work on Saturday. Your manager's going to say, Curtis, this needs to be on Monday because ICPC is on Monday 9 o'clock. Subliminally, Curtis, Sunday 9 o'clock, you're working and you're writing your ICPC report.
Okay. Pause now. I just want to deal with some of these comments because some of them are sort of questions, I think. And yeah, okay, let's have a look. So Titch Terry says, I need a crystal ball to help me plan my day. Well, this is your crystal ball. It's on paper, actually.
I think it's probably the closest you're going to get to a crystal ball.
This is the thing. I'm analyzing the game of social work. This is the only way forward. Does the daily schedule come with the diary?
It's purchased. I will explain that. It's purchased separately. But I called above combined a two-tier system, and I'll explain why it's called a two-tier system once we're going to productivity. So I would encourage buying above, but that's not me being a salesman. There's a system behind it. There's a system and a strategy behind the two places. Okay.
Someone's saying here, I procrastinate a lot. Now this is for you, please. No, that's fine. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing.
Actually, sorry, Curtis, I've got the productivity bundle, so yes, you can buy it together. It's a productivity, it's a diary, it's a to-do list, and it's a template. It's called a productivity bundle, so yes, it does.
Okay. I cannot use lists as I spend more time making the list pretty and color coordinating things.
Thank you.
I find this is ineffective for me, so happy to hear more about this. Okay, well, we're going to get there.
There you go.
You know what it is, because we're all wired differently, but we all have to produce the same piece of work. And so why this tool here is not made for one type of person. I really appreciate it on that basis.
What you're supposed to do is personalize this in accordance to your learning need, according to your makeup, if that makes sense. So that's what able to do.
So someone else is asking, is it dyslexic friendly?
Oh,
good question.
That's a very good question. That's a very, very good question.
And I guess it depends on your needs as a dyslexic. What are your needs on that? What do you need to see? You can answer the question if you can. Yeah, but not you, whoever wrote that.
Are you speaking to me?
No, I was just saying to the social work student 40, saying, what needs do you have? Because it's informing. We don't only want to just say this is the product. Actually, we're here to learn about, Ashley's here to learn about how to make the products more tailor-made for you all as well. Another question or point here is, as a student, I'm awful with my time management. I will leave assignments 3 days before the due date, and I never did that. And believe me, guys, as a creative, as someone who's scattered-minded, I like to. I'm not structured in my let me put it like this. In order for me to draw a picture or complete a task, or when I'm doing my assignments, I put a bit here, a bit here, a bit here, a bit here. And there's pros and cons to that. That's partly how my brain works, because I'm thinking about too many things at once. What I then did, what I realized is that because I'm like that, my time management was now in my diary. I would always put 2 weeks before the due date. And so when you've got something like this that you actually dedicate yourself to use, if you use it in a way that is designed, then just be consistent, because as a social worker, you have to be consistent in certain things or it will always catch you out. But if you use these tools, and there's another tool as well that we're going to show you, just be consistent, because you see this here, when I use this, I have found that this piece of paper will last me a few days because I'm working with it and I'm ticking things off as I'm accomplishing. And that is really, for me, I need that. And I never knew I needed it so much.
There's a few ways to use it. I'll explain that in a minute, because I use it in different ways. And again, it's bespoke. In terms of the learning needs, and dyslexic, I think this really enhances practice for someone who has or identifies some sort of learning need. This is exactly what I actually consulted a very close friend of mine who qualified when I qualified, and she is actually and she asked me that. She said, Ash, I'm dyslexic. And, you know, she's had some bad experiences as well whilst in practice. But she said, have you considered how that would sort of be tailored towards someone like me, kind of a thing? And we had that discussion. And so she helped me. She didn't help me design it, but she gave me some ideas and some input in terms of when I was actually creating it, so that it can actually then. The idea was for it to be able to be personalised within everyone's different learning needs.
Yeah.
So that's what it's designed for being tailored to. But can I just go back into, so once you've mapped and you've identified what, you know, the day, what's important, what's not, then you can, then what the research is saying is then you can actually then have a to-do. But what the to-do here now does is it has purpose. It has function. Does that make sense, guys?
Yep.
What you're doing now within this to-do is you're completing this. You're completing, you're setting out to complete what's actually already been planned. So we use a to-do list to plan what we're going to do. That's what the research is saying. That's not really helpful because it hasn't mapped out. It hasn't scheduled. It hasn't allowed you to build a vision of what's happening today. It's an isolated view. So once you've actually constructed a view, you then use your to-do list, the traditional to-do list, to then action it. So you're actioning what you're planning. Yeah. And as you're doing that, because we're human, because we internalize, because we process, because we're also recipients as social workers of, you know, a huge amount of information from phone calls, from emails, we need to dump it. We need to get rid of it. We can't hold that. Yeah. So this is the version of the brain scribble. Now, again, what do we get rid of? Things that are important. So you start getting those niggly bits, those niggly doubts, those phone calls, that key vital information. You know, remember this. You know, personalize it. Use color. Use felt tips. Use highlighters. Draw. Anything. It's designed to be messy. So those things that you're holding in your mind, that's making you feel that, you know, that heavy feeling. The idea here behind the brain dump. And notice that I've used different variations of tone in terms of the structure of the design. And again, that's to highlight that, to tell your brain that. It's to highlight your brain, to tell your brain the different modalities that your brain is processing at different parts of the day. So when you see that, psychologically you're saying, right, I'm going to dump this, and then psychologically you start experiencing that relieving effect. You just feel, well, I've got rid of that, but it's safe, it's there, I've got that. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. I'm using it, and you know what I like about it as well? It doesn't have colors that trigger anxiety.
Yeah, that's why I've used, well, the research always says to use color, actually. It enhances productivity, which is why I've used color. But then I had to figure out, you know, you can't use dark red, dark blue, dark black, you know, it's too bleak, and it makes you, it puts you in a bleak kind of world. So I've tried to use really light, sort of complementary colors, professional sort of colors that can, because it's going into sort of offices and different, you know, professional environments. So these are sort of colors that I felt would complement the environments that it's going into. So there you go. That's the you know, an explanation of why and what's going on within the map of the day.
Okay. So let's move on to the can't believe it. Sorry, sorry, someone's airdropping me. So this is it. So you can all see me, yeah? Okay, lovely. So let's move on to the, what would you call this? The frontline diary?
That's the frontline diary. That's just your diary. But right. It's not just a diary, it's a talk. For me, this is a talk. It's literally a talk. It's your productivity toolkit for a frontline practitioner. So I've captured the essence of frontline. Now, why I've called it frontline is because it captures the features of what we're doing. So the fast pace of it, the dynamics of it, you know, the stress. We're supposed to be able to identify, well, actually, I'm a frontline practitioner. and you see this isn't your ordinary everyday mundane task. This is stressful stuff. So the title within itself tries to capture that, as you know, as a toolkit. Really, that's why I've called it a frontline diary. But it's not just a diary. It's your productivity sort of toolkit that's designed to enhance, to organize, and make your practice that a little bit more efficient and economic.
Do you know what? I'm gonna give this a little review, okay? Whilst we're
Please
here.
do.
You see, you can hear me flicking through the pages on this. First of all, it's a quality piece of work. Look, I would have said this anyway. I don't gas. If I didn't think it was good, I wouldn't have brought it up on the show. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't gas. That's how I am, right? Second of all, it's got a good weight to it, so it feels like I bought a piece of quality. I'm gonna be honest with you, right? It's a little bit heavier than an iPad, so I'm gonna feel good about that. But I'm gonna say that this thing here, it's not just the diary part is a small part of this thing. That's my opinion. Okay, what it is a toolkit for practice. Hold on, let me just. No, I've got to be careful. Can I put that up? Yeah, I can put this up because I've written in this. I don't want to make mistakes. If you work in children and families, I mean, this is just the most handy piece of thing that you're gonna need for your assessments, and it's the assessment triangle. And you use this and anything else that comes to mind, but this is your basic framework for writing an assessment on a family. Helps you structure how you're going to write. And I use this because it helps me write efficiently. I also like that you've got quotes in here. And you know something, I read through some of them and I'm like, this was really helpful. All right, let me go further. Yeah, I can't show that because it's got people's names in it. But I can pick this up at any time. There's no dates here, guys, but it's the week. There's no dates here. So you don't have to waste half of your diary if you bought it now. You could start at the very beginning if you want to. And
It's an open calendar.
Open calendar. Your main calendar's here. But throughout this, you can start any week. You can start at the beginning. Your year will start basically now. I'm making a lot of noise about this because this is really helping me. What else is it doing? There was something else in there. It's got a to-do task list on there. And that's my thing. I need to write a list. My style of being on top of things is to write a list. Bro, I'm handing it over to you. What do you want to say about this and what brought it about?
So, I know we use the word toolkit, but it's actually to do with productivity in itself. Now, I'll explain it to you. So productivity in itself has different features, different layers to it, okay? Lots to it, actually. But it's really associated with two key features that I find very problematic. I find the concepts of productivity problematic in the context of social work, okay? So the first feature is of productivity, it tells you within the 10 anyway, is that it's associated with the optimization of a functioning. In other words, how we can do as many things at the fastest rate, at the fastest pace, optimizing your practice. Now that's problematic. For me, that's problematic. And I'll question you, Kurdish. You work at 100 miles per hour in frontline practice, you're increasing the chances of
crashing, failure,
burnout.
Yeah.
So instantly optimizing practice within the context of social work, there's a real risk that comes with that. You're actually enhancing the chances of burnout. You can't just go in and start optimizing. Okay, it's dangerous. Yeah. So that's the first key. The second feature is efficiency. Productivity is to do with efficiency. How much can you actually do within a certain time frame, within a period? Yeah. Now, for me, that's again problematic within the context of social work because we work within time scales. Time scales for us is dictated. We don't make up the time scales. For example, I remember a few years back, I worked in a team. I worked in a team. There was one model. So basically, it was from the assessment all the way up to the course. It was one functioning model. Okay. So what that actually meant was every 2 to 3 weeks we went on duty as part of the assessment.
That was me.
But at the same time, as on duty, I've got my child in need cases, I've got my child protection plans, and I've got my court cases. But I'm on duty, right? Now, at that time, I remember I was actually an advanced prac in that team, and so I was getting all the Section 47s. Now, on my duty week, on one particular day, I'd be given about six or seven single assessments to do. Right now, 45 days later, Curtis, you'll know this. What happens in 45 days? You have 6 assessments to do on the 45th day. You have
Well, if you leave it up,
6 assessments that's due in, because it's you've been given it to on your first on that one day. 45 days on that same day, you have 6 things. You have to complete 6 single assessments, right? And there's no two ways about it. They're gonna want right now. I've come in on a Monday. On Tuesday, 6 assessments are due, right? Now I've got child protection plans. I've done Section 47s. I've done EPOs. I've done safety planning in the community. I'm going into courts, right? But the expectation is actually you need to do 6. You need to hand in 2 days 6 children and family assessments. Now we're not going to go into why I didn't. I did actually. I had to give myself credit. I had about 3 done at this. All right, and I thought that's quite good. In considering my time, my workload at the time was really high, and I left that team to be honest because I just couldn't cope. I couldn't cope with the one model. It was just too much. It wasn't being managed well. But why I'm saying that the example is here is we're not in control at times. There's an element of you being in control, and there's time where you're not in control when it comes to timescales. And again, so it's problematic, right? And it's difficult. How do we ascertain that? How do we manage that? What are the key strategies that we can to manage ourselves within that? Okay. Now, there's a third concept that I actually like when it comes to productivity, and that is actually to do with goals, setting goals. And we're going to be very familiar with this because that's what we do as social. We set goals for families, and we need to achieve this within this and this time frame or date. We smart plan it. But productivity questions, the idea of productivity questions, how then do we achieve that goal? It's not just about the goal within itself. How do you set out to achieving that goal? Now, the most effective way for you to achieve that goal is to create a system. Does that make sense? The system within itself is more important than attaining the goal. The goal is objective, and the system is subjective because it's about how you go about, how you strategize, and what are you building in order for you to then go and achieve that goal effectively, efficiently. Now, and for me, that concept was key because if efficiency and optimization is problematic, then it begs the question: what strategies do we then put in place that's unique, that's bespoke to social work practice? And this is why I said this was very interesting to understand, to see that why is none of this being actually explored in social work till today. We don't have these conversations. There isn't actually, there's barely any even academic research on this. Okay, so the beginning to my, not an answer, or maybe a resolve, maybe a solution, is we need as practitioners to actually then work out what is an effective system for us to then be as effective as we can to meet the demands of the variables, of the features that make up our practice. Does that make sense? So what we're looking at here effectively are the beginning of my own journey of creating some effective systems that can help us as social workers, as frontliners, to meet what our goals actually are in line of performance, but as well as integrating our practice. Because remember, there's a key, there's a difference between the two. So I call this now the two-tier kind of, I call this a two-tier system. It's obviously been camouflaged really pretty and it looks really nice. Well, I hope so. This is the map of the day is beginning to learn that. And this is another feature of productivity. Productivity is all about learning. It's all about self-discovery. It's all about meaning. It's all about developing healthier, better habits. Okay, this is the opportunity to start practicing. Okay, and when it comes to the diary, this is where you embed it. This is where you're running frontline. This is where you're a proficient, you're a profound practitioner. So you practice, it goes into where, and this is what you're actioning. So it goes. That's why I call it the two-tier system. This is your planning. This is some healthy practice. This is where you do the thinking, and this is where this is where Ash or Curtis, the practitioner, is on game A, and he's going out in the community. He's managing risk. He's meeting the needs of children. He's undertaking Section 47s. He's going into PLOs. He's going into court cases. He's been cross-examined. He's writing those hefty assessments. You know, he's writing that hefty parenting assessment. He's doing the evidence-based work. It all goes into so the features that are in here, you will see that I've spread the features actually more articulately, more professionally throughout the actual diary. I.e., beginning of each week, I put a timescale mapping. So when you begin to become well versed in timescale mapping and practicing it as a practice, as a productive habit, it becomes second nature. So every week you're mapping your timescales. You become well versed in it. You start to ingrain in your thinking.
Mm.
Does that make sense? Now, in terms of the system, I didn't thought, right, what are the systems that I didn't incorporate into productivity, but in the context of practice? What's important to us? Why does it make what makes it important? What makes it a need, a necessity? So at the end of each month, for me, let's begin with a calendar, right? The open calendar. I've then unpicked the systems that we create. Your duties, your admin days, your trainings, and your putting your annual leave. That's for your breaks. But the idea here behind the open calendar, Curtis, is for you to start engaging here with. And I've put on the side, if you see, use your own color in color code, is for you to start building systems, building patterns, not just for today or tomorrow, but throughout your year, to become proficient.
Right.
But you do it. You personalize that action. So that we come down to the learning needs, or we come down to whether we whatever type of learning style or type we are. This is your own space to do it in a way that is comfortable with you. You're starting to now beginning to engage in a very complex, a bit more in an advanced way. Do you know what I mean? But what you're doing is you're getting into a habit of building your own systems. And the key parts of the system, mind you, the assessment framework is a system. Okay, this is a system we operate on for practice. But that's not why I put it there. I put it there because it's our bread and butter. So in terms of productivity, this is why I put at the beginning of each week your mapping, your timescale mapping, and at the bottom of it, I've put down your to-dos and your actions. And notice I've given a bigger space for your mapping, because what you need to be doing here at this stage is put in what you've planned, what you've practiced. You're setting it in stone. Okay, you're forward thinking, you're future thinking, you're trying to predict the behavior of timescales.
This is interesting. This is interesting because what you're showing social workers, and I have a number of friends in the game as well of coaching, as well as being social workers, and that is we cannot. Is it Bianca as well? I know is particularly on this as well. My advice is don't just sit there and be a social worker. Don't just go to work 9 to 5 and switch off at the end of the day. Have a bit more of a vision for where you're going, and that this diary is a visual, and we all need to visualize and envision our journey, predict our journey, and I think that is a really helpful part of what you're allowing us to do. You're enabling us to.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying. I've given it a go, and I'm hoping it helps, because I'm passionate about this, and I'm passionate about my colleagues. We're social workers, we're colleagues, we're in the same profession, But and at the end of it, I put supervision. This is why it's key. Where then do we have accountability for productivity? What is supervision about? Supervision is part of the productivity discourse. It's not just about performance and what you're doing and what your cases entail. All of those things come under the banner of productivity. We just don't know about it. Okay, so this is your time to get personal. And again, I've put down here, how am I feeling? Express yourself to a manager, because what we want to do now is make it relational as well. It's not just about performance and productivity, guys. Really, behind that is the humans. Behind that, we operate within a human space, and that's us. We operate within who we are. Okay, we get tired. We get stressed, we get fatigued, we have anxiety, we get worried, we have 20, 25, 30 cases on our hands, we have families, okay? Express that. If you can't express it verbally, write it, show it to her or him. If you don't want to write it, draw a picture, put a happy face, do an emoji, use color, draw a heart, draw a broken heart, I don't know, communicate. We're masters of communication. That's our key skill. We communicate. That's what we do. So communicate yourself in whatever way to those who have accountability for you. It's a shared responsibility, and believe it or not, it's part of being productive. It's part of your strength. You need to be expressing yourself, and if you don't take it serious, they're not going to take it serious. So you need to be taking yourself serious for them to take you serious. So it's really key that we've put that there. Really important to all practitioners, especially newly qualified ASOs. Get into the habit of relaying how you feel. If you feel tired, you tell them you're tired. If you're stressed, you need a break, you tell them that. If you build that confidence from the get-go, the louder you are, the better you are in an environment that's full of noise. You're just a part of that. Yeah. So the louder you are, the more you're going to get heard, because the noise all around you, you're going to get consumed, and you just become part. You just become a number. We need to not. We need to really profess that we're a human. I'm a human behind. There's a human behind this profession. Okay, and that's me. And then again, productivity, a key feature of productivity in the context is obviously your cases. So then I put your cases, and this is based on the discussion you're going to have with your manager. Now she's going to provide you with instructions on what's important, what's not important, what needs to be done today, timescales, dates, referrals, phone calls, chase this up, chase that up. So I'll put in a few things there, only for very important things. When you put it there, you tick it as you go. Yeah. So urgent stuff goes in here. The rest of it that's not urgent can go into here. You can use it you can go into your planner. Now you can take it and you can just leave it in there. Just put it in there and work at a day and then personalize it. You can just get really flexible with it. So that's why I've done your cases and then sort of new allocations. And then there's a space here, guys, for reflection. And that's any type of reflection, learning reflection, new cases. I felt overwhelmed, what I need to do, and anything. Own your reflection. Start practicing reflection monthly, weekly. It's a daily practice. Sorry. But really start writing down what you're reflecting, because those reflections are so key. It's so invaluable. Those are the key experiences that when you look back tomorrow, you're going to be like, wow, that's mind blowing. I can't believe I read that. I must have been deeply affected or deeply stimulated by a particular experience or a particular engagement with a family. I must have learned something really profound here to have read this 6 months ago. You know what I mean? And 6 months later, when those emotions are not raw, you can then you're getting in a place where you can objectively start making sense of it. Ideas create innovation. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? This was an idea, and this is just an idea for me. And these were my reflections. I'll tell you the truth. This was my reflections. So my creativity created ideas, and then through there I innovated. And this is an innovation I put out into the world. People buying it, and it's helping. So don't undermine your reflections. Your reflections one day will come to life. Your ideas will come to life. Do you know what I mean?
This has been an awesome session. I just want to let everyone know. Can we get a discount? Yes or no? You
can get a discount under the banner of Curtis Social Work Roast. So there is a discount. Oh, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. There's been a sale on. I don't know if you guys know. There's been a sale for as part of the Social Work Month. And so there's already a discount on the diary. It's a 50% discount, guys. So this is $19.99. It's at the minute going for £10. And there's a promotional sale on the map of the day. So this is originally $7.99. It's currently going for £5. Additionally, if you use Curtis's code, you can get an additional 10% off the actual sales, because I've already programmed it onto my e-commerce. So Curtis is here to look after you. He wishes well for you guys. I've understood that Curtis is passionate, and I want you to be part of that love. So we've put a discount banner and discount code under Curtis's name. So anyone who wants to buy the diary, not just within the sales, outside of the sales, it's a long-term thing. If you DM Curtis for the code, when you buy it, go into the coupon code, insert the coupon code, and you instantly will get a discount. But if you're going to make a purchase within the sale period, that's until tomorrow, because tomorrow is Social Work Day. It's tomorrow's World Social Work Day, and tomorrow will be the final day of the discount, and so you can get an additional 10% discount through Curtis. So
if you want that, you need to DM me. I'll give you the code, but you can also access the purchase banner through my bio in my link in my Instagram profile. Click on that. You can get access to everything, including the access to buy the frontline diary and planner. Okay.
I've also launched new templates. So check out my templates. That's designed for fast-paced practice. It's case note templates. It's unlimited download. The idea is for anyone who's on assessment doing fast-paced type of work. It's a one-time download, unlimited print. So the idea is just print and go. And I'm actually going to be printing some physical stuff of it. So I've got loads that I'm launching over the year. So keep an eye on, guys.
Yeah, sure. You're asking what website? Just message me privately and I'll send it to you. Okay. I'll send you the link. Not a problem. I'll give you the coupon code as well. Ash, I just want to say it's been a massive learning session.
Thank
And
you.
I know to create an awareness over how productive we will be when we hit the ground as students,
I hope
as
so.
AS1, you know.
I hope it's been helpful. Honestly, that's what we're trying to do here. As we're trying to help each other. We're really trying to help each other, right? And this is the void within the context of
It
local
is.
authorities. So you know, these spaces are crucial, and what I'm trying to do is fill a void that I thought was really crucial for not just for students, social workers, and ACYs, but you know, for guys at your level, Curtis, and guys that are you know you know, are 10 years, 50, it doesn't matter. This for me, productivity applies to every professional at every stage of their career.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, guys. I'm going to let you go now, but Ash, hats off to you. It's
Thank
been an
you.
honor.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mr. SJD, message me privately. Anybody wants a serious discount, just let me know.
You can also message me, guys. Just
Yeah,
DM me on New Generation Social Work. Say hello. Give us feedback. You know, let's connect and learn from each other. Give me some feedback. Any questions? Give us a call. Any ideas? Give us a bell. You want to talk about anything? I'm creating a diary for students, guys. So students, if you want to DM me, you can be part of that design process as well. You can come and be part of the consultation phase, and I'm doing that really soon. And what I want to do is put in key templates for placements, for conversations and things that are really important to students at university level as well. So that's in the design phase as we speak. So students can really be part of that. And you know, DM me, we can talk about it.
imagine that. And maybe we can get some royalties. Who knows? Have a have a good night, everyone. Ash, you know, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll see you later.
Have a good
Have
night,
a good
everyone.
evening. Bye for now.